God says, this is very serious. Jesus is begging for you, only you. Important alert. Very bad news for you tonight at 10:15 p.m. If you leave this, you will cry so much. Open it quickly before it's too late. Listen with your whole heart, because what is being spoken over your life right now carries weight that cannot be ignored, and if you scroll away you may miss a turning point that heaven arranged especially for you. This warning is not spoken in anger but in deep love, because Jesus sees something forming around your night that could shake your peace if you are not spiritually prepared. There is a heaviness trying to settle over your home at 10:15 p.m. tonight, and the Lord wants to shield you before it touches your thoughts, your emotions, and your sleep. Type Amen if you believe. The urgency in these words is not meant to frighten you but to awaken you, because when God calls something serious it means He is stepping in before harm reaches your door. Type 2323 if you agree. This is a moment that requires your full attention, because Jesus is interceding for you in a way that is deeply personal and filled with compassion that only heaven can understand. He is not begging because he is weak, but because his love for you is fierce and protective, and he refuses to let you walk blindly into emotional pain. Before this night unfolds, take a second to like this video as a simple act of faith and unity, because your agreement with these words opens your heart wider to the protection God is releasing over you. What is coming at 10:15 p.m. is not random, and it is not without warning, because the Lord always speaks before the storm tries to speak louder. The bad news mentioned is not meant to crush you but to prepare you, because sometimes the enemy plans to disturb your peace through sudden information, unexpected calls, or troubling thoughts that arrive when darkness feels heavier. Jesus sees the plan forming, and he is standing between you and the emotional impact that could leave you crying if you were unguarded and unaware. Heaven is alert tonight because your destiny matters, and even one night of despair could try to weaken the strength you have been building in silence. God is asking you to open this quickly because obedience in small moments creates protection in larger ones. There is something about 10:15 p.m. that has already been marked in the spiritual realm, and although you may not see it with your physical eyes, the Lord sees the movement around your name. This does not mean you are cursed or abandoned, because if that were true you would not be hearing this warning filled with love and urgency. It means you are valued, watched over, and worth rescuing before tears ever reach your pillow. Jesus is begging for you because he knows how sensitive your heart has been lately, and how easily disappointment could break the fragile hope you have been trying to hold together. You have been carrying silent battles that no one around you truly understands, and the weight of those battles has made you more vulnerable to sudden emotional blows. Tonight could have been a moment where a single piece of news or a single thought spirals into fear, regret, or deep sadness, but God refuses to let that happen without giving you spiritual armor first. The seriousness in his voice comes from care, not from punishment, and the alert is proof that heaven is active around your life. When Jesus begs for you, it is because he sees your future shining brighter than this temporary shadow trying to approach. Instead of allowing fear to settle in your chest, let this be the moment you consciously invite the presence of God into your evening before the clock reaches that specific minute. Pray softly in your room, speak the name of Jesus with trust, and declare that no bad news will steal your joy or control your reaction. Even if something unexpected tries to appear, you will not collapse under it because you have already been strengthened by this warning. The enemy counts on surprise and isolation, but you have been given awareness and divine covering. The phrase "open it quickly before it is too late" is not about panic but about readiness, because delay sometimes gives anxiety time to grow larger than truth. God wants you spiritually alert, emotionally grounded, and aware that no report, no message, and no sudden development can override His authority over your life. If something difficult arrives, you will face it with calm instead of chaos because Jesus has already gone before you. Tears will not own you tonight because heaven has spoken before darkness could whisper its lies. There is deep tenderness in the way Christ pleads for you, and that tenderness means you are never facing any hour alone. Even when the clock strikes 10:15 p.m., you will not stand in that moment without protection, because the Lord has already positioned His peace around your heart. This is not a story of fear but a testimony of protection, because when God alerts you ahead of time, it means He has already made a way through what tries to come against you. The night does not control your destiny, and the clock does not decide your future, because Jesus holds authority over every second that passes. There are moments in life when a simple notification, a sudden thought, or a quiet conversation can shake the inner balance you have worked so hard to maintain. The Lord knows how fragile your emotions have felt recently, especially after enduring silent disappointments and hidden struggles that only He truly witnessed. At 10:15 p.m., something may attempt to disturb your peace, whether through unexpected information or a wave of discouraging thoughts that feel heavy and sharp. Yet this time, you are not unprepared, because God has chosen to surround you with awareness instead of leaving you vulnerable to surprise. A classified 7-second morning ritual, once buried in CIA files, is quietly transforming financial lives. In under 30 seconds, it helps shift the mind from scarcity to wealth, with many reporting surprise income and peace. Click the link in the comments below before the page is removed. Jesus is not begging for you because He doubts your strength, but because He sees how deeply your heart longs for stability, reassurance, and hope that does not crumble under pressure. His plea carries compassion, as if He is gently holding your face and reminding you that no bad news can cancel the promises written over your life. Even if something difficult surfaces tonight, it will not define your story or erase the growth you have made through faith and perseverance. Heaven's concern is rooted in love, and love always warns before it shields. Sometimes the enemy tries to attack during the quiet hours, when your mind is less distracted and more open to fear, because darkness often amplifies worries that feel smaller during the day. That is why this specific time was highlighted, not to frighten you but to encourage you to fill that moment with prayer instead of panic. When the clock approaches 10:15 p.m., choose to speak peace over your room, your family, and your thoughts, because spoken faith weakens unseen opposition. The Lord desires that you face the night with calm authority instead of trembling uncertainty. You may have noticed lately that your thoughts become heavier at night, as if the silence invites memories, doubts, or anxieties to rise louder than usual. This is not a coincidence, because spiritual battles often try to intensify when you are alone with your own mind. Yet tonight, that pattern is being interrupted, because God has already stepped into the timeline of your evening. The bad news that was mentioned may attempt to appear in different forms, but its power will be broken the moment you refuse to surrender your peace. Type 1111 if you trust in God. Trust is not simply a word you speak during comfortable seasons, but a decision you hold on to when uncertainty approaches your door. When you affirm your trust, you are declaring that no report, no message, and no sudden shift can override the protection that Jesus has placed around you. This trust creates a shield over your emotions, preventing tears from flowing out of fear or despair. The Lord's heart for you is gentle, and His warning carries the promise that He will not allow you to collapse under what tries to shock you. If something unpleasant reaches you tonight, remember that it did not arrive without heaven's awareness, and it certainly did not bypass God's permission. Nothing surprises the one who created time itself, and nothing catches Him unprepared. Even if your heart feels momentarily shaken, strength will rise within you in ways that surprise you, because divine support often activates in the very second it is needed most. The seriousness of this alert is proof that you are being watched over carefully, not abandoned to chance. There is also a deeper layer to this warning that speaks to your emotional healing, because sometimes bad news does not come through external events but through internal battles that resurface without invitation. Old wounds, past regrets, or forgotten fears may try to revisit you at that specific hour, whispering lies about your worth or your future. Yet Jesus is begging for you because He refuses to let those whispers grow louder than His truth. He wants you anchored in the understanding that you are cherished, chosen, and guarded. You have survived seasons that once felt unbearable, and each of those seasons shaped resilience within you that you may not even recognize fully. Tonight is not a repeat of those painful chapters, because you are not the same person you were before, and your faith has grown stronger than you realize. What once might have reduced you to tears will now meet a calmer, wiser, and more spiritually aware version of yourself. This growth is evidence that God has been working quietly in your life long before this specific alert was spoken. Instead of focusing on the possibility of bad news, shift your attention to the certainty of divine presence that surrounds you. Visualize the peace of Christ filling your room as the night deepens, covering every corner with comfort and light. Imagine the hands of God resting gently over your heart, steadying its rhythm and quieting its fears before they even begin. This is not imagination alone but a spiritual reality that becomes stronger the more you embrace it. Type 2020 to claim miracles. Miracles do not always appear as dramatic changes that everyone can see, because sometimes they arrive quietly as emotional stability, unexpected calm, or the ability to handle news with grace. If something arrives tonight that once would have broken you, your miracle may be the strength to respond with clarity instead of chaos. The Lord's protection may show itself in the way your heart remains steady, even when circumstances attempt to shake it. That is still a powerful intervention from heaven, and it is still worthy of gratitude. As the minutes pass and the night approaches the time that was mentioned, remember that you are not walking toward danger but toward a demonstration of God's faithfulness. Even if something uncomfortable tries to surface, it will not overpower the peace that has already been placed within you. You are being prepared, not punished, and you are being strengthened, not targeted for destruction. The love of Jesus that begs for you is the same love that carries you gently through every storm. When 10:15 p.m. arrives, breathe slowly and intentionally, allowing your heart to remain grounded in trust rather than tension. Speak softly that you belong to God, and that nothing coming against you has authority greater than His. If a message appears, read it calmly and remember that your reaction determines whether fear grows or faith expands. If a troubling thought arises, replace it immediately with the truth that you are under divine covering. Do you know, inside your brain is a small region linked to wealth and success, once buried in restricted research and hidden in CIA files. This newly revealed frequency is helping people replace stress with financial ease, and God has guided you here. Click the link in the description and comments to activate this hidden brain wave now. Tonight is not the end of your joy, and it is not the beginning of sorrow that defines your future. It is simply a moment where heaven decided to step in early and remind you that you are deeply loved and carefully guarded. The seriousness of this alert reveals how precious you are, because only something valuable receives such careful attention. God does not repeat something serious unless it truly carries weight, and He does not call your attention without also preparing your protection. The night may look ordinary on the outside, yet in the unseen realm there is movement that revolves around your name, your peace, and your destiny. There are moments in life when a single event tries to create a chain reaction of fear, sadness, or confusion, and those moments often begin quietly before they grow louder. Tonight could have been one of those turning points, where an unexpected development attempts to shake your emotional balance. Yet because heaven has already spoken, the impact will not be the same as it would have been without warning. Awareness weakens the element of surprise, and preparation strengthens your response long before anything even happens. You may wonder why such urgency was necessary, and the answer rests in how deeply God values your emotional stability during this season of your life. You have been rebuilding your inner strength piece by piece, carefully placing hope back into areas that once felt broken. A sudden shock could have tried to undo that progress, leaving you overwhelmed and questioning everything you have been trusting. Jesus is begging for you because He refuses to allow your fragile healing to be shattered by something that can be handled with faith instead of fear. The bad news mentioned may not even be catastrophic in nature, but its timing could have been enough to catch you at a vulnerable point. Sometimes it is not the size of the event that causes tears, but the condition of the heart when it receives it. Tonight, your heart is being fortified before the clock reaches that specific minute, so that even if something disappointing surfaces, it will not penetrate deeply. Strength is forming quietly inside you, like roots growing stronger beneath the soil before a storm passes overhead. There is also the possibility that what tries to reach you tonight is not external news but an internal wave of heaviness that attempts to settle in your chest without clear reason. You may suddenly feel anxious, unsettled, or reflective about past wounds that have not fully healed. The enemy often uses quiet hours to amplify emotions that feel manageable during the daylight. Yet because you were alerted, you will recognize the shift quickly and respond with prayer rather than surrender. Type yes to affirm. When you affirm with faith, you are aligning your heart with the protection that is already surrounding you. This simple declaration becomes an anchor in moments when emotions attempt to drift toward sadness or panic. You are not speaking into emptiness, but into a spiritual atmosphere that is attentive to your voice. Agreement with God's covering strengthens your awareness that nothing arrives in your life without passing through His hands first. As 10:15 p.m. draws closer, the seriousness of this hour is transforming into an opportunity rather than a threat. Instead of dreading the minute, you can approach it with calm readiness and quiet confidence. Even if a call, notification, or sudden realization tries to disturb you, you will face it with steadiness that surprises even you. The tears that were once predicted will not fall the same way, because preparation changes the outcome of emotional impact. You have been through nights before where unexpected developments left you awake, restless, and burdened by thoughts that would not quiet down. Those experiences shaped caution within you, and sometimes even fear of what darkness might bring. Tonight is different because it has been intentionally marked by divine intervention before anything unfolded. What once would have caught you off guard is now meeting a heart that has been warned and wrapped in peace. It is important to understand that God does not exaggerate when He speaks of seriousness, because His words carry intention and purpose. When He highlights a specific time, it is because that moment has significance either in what tries to happen or in how you respond. Your reaction tonight is just as important as any event that might occur. Remaining calm, grounded, and spiritually aware will demonstrate growth that heaven has been nurturing within you for months. There is also a deeper spiritual truth hidden within this alert, because sometimes bad news is not meant to destroy you but to reveal how much stronger you have become. You may discover that what once would have reduced you to despair now meets a composed and prayerful response. This transformation is not accidental but the result of God working patiently in your life through past challenges. Tonight could become a quiet testimony of resilience rather than a chapter of tears. Type 1212 if you walk by faith. Financial freedom is not about effort, but activating a hidden brain signal once buried in CIA files. Neuroscience shows this sound wave helps attract money and opportunity faster, and thousands are already seeing unexpected income. Click the link in the description and comments now to activate the ancient money wave today. Walking by faith does not mean you deny the reality of events, but it means you refuse to let them define your peace or control your emotions. It means you stand steady even when information feels uncomfortable, because your foundation is not built on circumstances but on Christ. This posture of faith shifts the atmosphere around you, creating calm where anxiety once tried to rise. It allows you to see beyond the surface of a situation and recognize that God remains in control. If nothing dramatic happens at 10:15 p.m., do not dismiss the importance of what was spoken, because sometimes the greatest miracles are the ones that prevent what you never even see. Protection often works silently, stopping certain outcomes before they ever materialize in your awareness. You may never know what was blocked, softened, or redirected on your behalf. Yet heaven will know, and your peace tonight will be evidence that something was handled behind the scenes. If something does occur, whether small or significant, you will face it differently than you would have before hearing this warning. Instead of reacting with panic, you will pause and remember that you were told in advance for a reason. Instead of crying in isolation, you will turn immediately to prayer, grounding your thoughts in truth rather than fear. That shift alone changes the entire emotional trajectory of the night. The seriousness of this hour is gradually transforming into reassurance, because the same God who warned you is now calming you. His voice is no longer only urgent but also comforting, reminding you that He remains close and attentive. You are not being singled out for harm, but singled out for protection. Jesus is begging for you because you are deeply loved, not because you are doomed. As the clock continues its steady movement, let your heart remain settled in the understanding that nothing about tonight is outside divine awareness. Whether the moment passes quietly or brings something unexpected, you will remain standing. Heaven is not tense, and you are not meant to be tense either, because when God alerts you, He also stabilizes you. The love of Jesus that pleaded for you earlier is now resting over you in quiet strength, ensuring that no unexpected moment can overpower your spirit. There are times when an hour becomes spiritually significant not because of what happens outwardly, but because of what shifts inwardly. Tonight carries that kind of significance, where your response matters more than any single event that could unfold. If something unsettling tries to approach, whether through a message, a call, or even a sudden wave of discouraging thoughts, your heart has already been prepared to meet it differently. What once could have produced panic will now meet a calm that has been cultivated intentionally. You have grown more than you realize, and this growth is precisely why the Lord spoke so firmly at the beginning. There was a time in your life when sudden news would have felt like the end of stability, sending your emotions spiraling into fear and helplessness. Now you stand in a different place, shaped by lessons, refined by challenges, and strengthened by quiet prayers that no one else heard. The seriousness of this night is not meant to undo that growth but to showcase it. If 10:15 p.m. has already passed or is moments away, notice how your breathing feels steadier than it would have without preparation. Notice how your thoughts are more intentional, refusing to wander into dark assumptions without first grounding themselves in truth. This is not coincidence but the fruit of awareness combined with faith. When you were warned, you were also empowered, and empowerment changes the entire atmosphere of an anticipated moment. The phrase "very bad news" was never meant to create a fixed outcome, but to ensure that if anything challenging surfaced, you would meet it from a place of readiness. Sometimes bad news loses much of its power when it is expected and spiritually covered in advance. Even if something disappointing reaches you, it will not land the same way it would have earlier in your life. The tears that might have flowed freely will now be replaced by measured response and quiet resilience. You are not fragile in the way you once were, even though your heart remains tender and compassionate. Tenderness does not equal weakness, and emotional depth does not mean you cannot handle sudden developments. Jesus begged for you because he knows your sensitivity, but he also knows your strength. His plea was not because you are incapable, but because you are precious and worth guarding carefully. Type 1919 to receive miracles. Receiving miracles does not always mean circumstances instantly transform into perfection, because sometimes the miracle is the way your inner world remains stable while the outer world shifts. Tonight, your miracle may be emotional balance where chaos once tried to rise. It may be clarity where confusion would have dominated, or peace where fear once lived. This kind of miracle often goes unnoticed by others, yet it is powerful and deeply personal. There is also the possibility that what was meant as bad news is softened before it reaches you, altered in timing or reduced in intensity because of divine intervention. God has a way of redirecting outcomes quietly, ensuring that certain blows never strike with full force. You may only see a small ripple instead of a wave, and you may never realize how much was shielded. Protection often works invisibly, yet its impact is real and life-changing. Even if nothing dramatic happens tonight, the seriousness of the earlier words still holds meaning. It may have been less about a specific event and more about awakening your spiritual awareness during a vulnerable hour. Sometimes heaven sounds an alarm not because disaster is certain, but because growth is necessary. This alert may have strengthened your faith in ways that will serve you far beyond this single night. A 7-second brain wave ritual, once reserved for elite people and hidden in CIA files, is now public, and people call it the 30-second miracle. Scientists say it awakens a dormant brain center tied to wealth and blessings. Click the link in the comments below before it's deleted again from the internet. You have likely experienced nights in the past where loneliness felt louder, and thoughts felt heavier than they did during the day. Those nights may have left you feeling isolated, misunderstood, or emotionally drained. Tonight, that pattern is being interrupted because you are conscious of divine presence in a more intentional way. Awareness itself becomes a form of comfort, replacing uncertainty with grounded trust. The love of Christ surrounding you right now is steady and unwavering, not dramatic or forceful, but constant like a heartbeat that never skips. His concern earlier was not about instilling fear but about preventing unnecessary sorrow. If tears come tonight, they will not come from shock or despair but perhaps from gratitude or release. There is a difference between tears of pain and tears of healing, and heaven desires the latter for you. You are not walking through this night alone, even if your room is silent and no one else seems aware of what you were told. The spiritual realm has been attentive to your name, and that attention does not disappear once a specific minute passes. God's care extends beyond 10:15 p.m. and continues into every hour that follows. The seriousness of His voice reflects the depth of His love, not the severity of your fate. If something did reach you at that marked time, reflect on how you handled it compared to how you might have reacted months or years ago. Notice the steadiness in your posture, the intentional choice to breathe instead of panic, the immediate turn toward prayer rather than despair. These shifts are evidence that you are maturing spiritually and emotionally. Growth often reveals itself most clearly in moments that once would have overwhelmed you. If nothing noticeable occurred, that too can be a sign of protection operating quietly in your favor. You may never see the paths that were redirected or the conversations that never happened because of unseen intervention. Yet your peaceful night stands as quiet proof that something was handled beyond your awareness. Sometimes the greatest blessings are the disasters that never materialize. As this part of the night continues, allow your heart to rest rather than remain on alert. The warning served its purpose, and now it transitions into reassurance. You have crossed a potentially fragile hour with awareness and faith intact. Whether the event was external, internal, or prevented entirely, you have emerged steady and guarded. Whether something noticeable happened or whether the moment passed without visible disturbance, the truth remains that heaven was attentive to you in a deeply personal way. This awareness alone shifts something inside you, because you realize that your life is not drifting through random hours without care or supervision. Sometimes the most powerful spiritual experiences are not loud or dramatic, but subtle and transformative in ways that only your heart can truly understand. The alert that once carried urgency now carries reassurance, because you crossed the marked minute without being crushed. If anything reached you, it did not break you. If nothing reached you, it still strengthened you, because preparation has a way of building confidence that lasts longer than the moment itself. There are seasons in life when God allows you to sense the seriousness of a situation not to burden you, but to mature you. Tonight was one of those seasons compressed into a single hour, where awareness, faith, and emotional discipline were all activated at once. You may not even fully realize how differently you handled this compared to how you once would have responded. Growth often hides in quiet victories, and this was a quiet victory. Jesus begging for you was never about desperation in heaven, but about tenderness toward your heart. It was a picture of how deeply you are valued, how carefully your emotional state matters, and how unwilling God is to let you spiral without guidance. When Christ intercedes for you, it is because your peace is precious. That pleading love did not vanish when the clock moved forward, because it continues into every hour ahead of you. There is something powerful about realizing that even a specific minute, such as 10:15 p.m., can become a reminder of divine care rather than fear. What once seemed like a threat has turned into a testimony that you were watched over carefully. This shift transforms the narrative from anxiety into gratitude. Instead of associating that time with dread, you may begin to remember it as the moment you learned how deeply protected you truly are. Type 666 if you trust Jesus. Trust is strengthened through experiences like this, where warning meets protection and anticipation meets peace. When you declare trust, you are acknowledging that even serious alerts are rooted in love, not harm. The trust you hold tonight is not shallow or forced, but shaped by lived moments where you saw divine covering at work. This kind of trust becomes a foundation for future challenges, because you now carry evidence that you are not alone in critical hours. It is also important to reflect on how fear attempted to form earlier but never fully took hold. The enemy may have hoped that the mention of bad news would create panic long before anything happened. Yet instead of spiraling, you leaned into preparation and prayer. That choice alone weakened any attempt to destabilize you emotionally. Your response became part of the protection itself. Even if there was a brief moment of tension when the clock approached that marked time, you did not collapse under it. You remained present, grounded, and spiritually alert. That steadiness is proof that your faith has deepened beyond surface-level belief. It shows that you are learning to face uncertain moments with calm authority instead of fragile fear. There may still be developments in the days ahead, because life rarely confines its lessons to a single hour. However, tonight served as a rehearsal for resilience, teaching you how to respond before emotions have a chance to overwhelm you. What once would have led to tears now leads to thoughtful reflection and controlled reaction. This transformation did not happen overnight, but it revealed itself clearly tonight. A 7-second brainwave ritual uncovered from sealed records and hidden in CIA files is transforming financial lives. It activates a forgotten abundance channel in the brain, leading to new financial opportunities and cleared debts. Click the link in the comments below before it disappears. The seriousness spoken at the beginning now feels like a doorway into maturity rather than a warning of doom. God sometimes uses strong language to wake your attention, especially when your heart has been carrying hidden vulnerability. It was not meant to accuse you or frighten you, but to position you carefully before something subtle tried to shake you. The love behind that alert was steady, intentional, and deeply personal. You may even feel a sense of quiet pride in how you handled the anticipation, because you faced it without running away. Instead of ignoring the warning or dismissing it, you engaged with it, preparing your spirit rather than pretending nothing could happen. That willingness to face seriousness with faith marks growth that will serve you repeatedly in the future. You are becoming someone who meets uncertainty with composure. As the night continues, allow yourself to rest without scanning for danger. The critical moment has passed, and the lesson has been planted. If nothing visible occurred, thank God for unseen protection. If something small did occur, thank Him for the strength that carried you through it without collapse. There is also a deeper truth woven into this experience, which is that your life is worth divine interruption. Heaven paused to warn you, not because disaster was inevitable, but because you are cherished. That kind of attention is not given lightly. It reflects how seriously God takes your emotional well-being and spiritual growth. Type Amen if you believe. Belief is not just agreement with words but alignment with the reality that you are guarded and guided. When you affirm belief, you reinforce the understanding that serious alerts are not signs of abandonment but of involvement. You believe not because everything is perfect, but because you have seen evidence of protection in real time. That belief becomes a light that continues to guide you through future nights. Carry this experience into tomorrow with a renewed sense of calm. Let it remind you that even when life hints at potential bad news, you are not helpless or alone. Preparation changes impact, and awareness strengthens response. The next time you face uncertainty, you will remember this night and the steadiness that carried you through. The fear that could have grown never fully matured, and the sorrow that was hinted at never truly took root. Instead, you are left with awareness, strength, and a deeper understanding that heaven does not speak without purpose. There are times when God allows a warning to echo loudly at first, not because disaster is certain, but because your attention is necessary for growth. You needed to pause, to prepare, and to take your emotional state seriously instead of drifting through another evening on autopilot. That seriousness forced you to confront how you usually respond to anticipation, uncertainty, and the thought of bad news. What you discovered is that you are far steadier than you once were, and far more grounded in faith than you sometimes admit. Even if something small unfolded at that marked hour, it did not shatter you. The tears that once would have flowed easily were replaced with composure and measured breathing. The panic that once would have raced through your thoughts was slowed by prayer and deliberate trust. This shift is not accidental but the result of countless quiet moments where you chose faith over fear long before tonight ever arrived. You may realize now that the seriousness was less about a specific event and more about strengthening your spiritual reflexes. When life surprises you, your first instinct matters deeply. In the past, your first instinct may have been worry, self-blame, or imagining the worst possible outcome. Tonight, your first instinct leaned toward calm, prayer, and a reminder that God remains in control. This transformation is subtle but powerful, because it means your foundation is becoming stronger than the circumstances that surround you. The enemy often tries to disturb you during the night, hoping that silence will amplify anxiety and that darkness will exaggerate every uncertainty. Yet this time, darkness did not dominate your thoughts. Instead, it became the backdrop for a quiet demonstration of resilience. There is something sacred about realizing that what once would have caused deep crying now becomes manageable. It does not mean you are cold or unfeeling, but that your emotions are no longer easily hijacked by sudden developments. You are learning to feel without being consumed, to process without collapsing, and to respond without surrendering your peace. This is maturity born from faith. Type 88 to stand in strength. Strength in this season is not loud or dramatic, but calm and rooted. It shows up in steady breathing when anxiety tries to rise, and in thoughtful reflection when disappointment appears. The strength forming inside you is not based on denial of reality, but on confidence that reality does not outrank divine authority. This kind of strength becomes a quiet anchor that holds you steady even when unexpected winds attempt to shift your direction. As you reflect on this night, you may also recognize that fear often exaggerates what might happen, making it appear larger than it actually becomes. The anticipation of bad news can sometimes feel heavier than the news itself. God's warning allowed you to confront that pattern and break it before it took control. Instead of letting imagination run wild, you learn to ground yourself in truth. The mark time of 10:15 p.m. may now feel like a symbol rather than a threat. It represents a moment when heaven leaned close and reminded you that you are not drifting alone through random hours. Every minute of your life is seen, and even specific seconds can carry divine attention. This awareness changes how you approach future moments of uncertainty. You may find that the next time a serious situation arises, you will remember this experience and respond with similar steadiness. The rehearsal you went through tonight was not wasted. It prepared you for future challenges that may carry greater weight. If you could cross this anticipated hour with calm, you can cross other unexpected moments with the same grounded faith. Using a simple 7-second brain wave ritual, once classified and hidden in CIA files, can unlock wealth, freedom, and success already inside you. This discovery is helping thousands step into abundance, and God has led you here for a reason. Click the link in the description and comments below to awaken this money magnet frequency today. There is also a gentle gratitude forming inside you, even if you do not yet have words for it. Gratitude that what could have been overwhelming became manageable. Gratitude that tears were prevented or softened. Gratitude that divine care intervened before fear could spiral. Type faith to affirm your trust. Affirming faith now is not about proving anything to anyone, but about sealing what you have learned into your heart. It is a declaration that serious warnings do not intimidate you anymore, because you understand their purpose. They are invitations to prepare, not predictions of destruction. Your trust has deepened because you have experienced protection in real time. The love of Jesus that begged for you earlier now feels like a steady embrace rather than an urgent cry. His pleading was not desperation, but devotion. It was the voice of a Savior unwilling to let you stumble through a vulnerable moment without guidance. That same devotion remains, extending into tomorrow and every day that follows. You are not defined by bad news, and you are not destined to be undone by difficult information. Life may still bring challenges, but you have learned that preparation, prayer, and awareness can dramatically change how those challenges affect you. The seriousness of God's voice was proof that your peace is worth defending. As this night closes fully, rest in the knowledge that nothing about it was random. Whether the event was visible, softened, or entirely prevented, something important occurred within you. You faced anticipation without retreating, and you remained steady under the weight of uncertainty. That alone marks growth that cannot be taken from you. Carry this steadiness forward into your future. The next time life whispers about potential bad news, you will not automatically assume tears. You will remember that you are covered, guided, and prepared before the hour ever arrives. Serious alerts will no longer feel like threats, but like reminders that you are deeply cared for and carefully watched. You did not crumble, you did not drown in fear, and you did not become consumed by the thought of bad news. Instead, you stood firm in quiet faith, and that quiet faith has now become part of who you are. There is a sacred lesson hidden in what you just experienced, and it speaks to how God prepares you before life attempts to test you. The seriousness that echoed in the beginning was not meant to create panic, but to awaken responsibility within your spirit. You were called to be alert, not afraid. You were invited to prepare, not to tremble. That distinction is powerful, because it means heaven was never predicting your downfall, but positioning you for victory in the smallest of ways. When you look back at the tension that tried to build around that specific minute, you can now see how much of it was anticipation rather than reality. The mind has a way of expanding uncertainty into something far larger than it actually becomes. Yet your preparation interrupted that pattern. You faced the possibility of discomfort without allowing it to dominate your heart. That change alone reflects growth that has been quietly developing within you for a long time. You may not fully realize how different this version of you is compared to the one from a few seasons ago. There was a time when the thought of very bad news at a precise hour would have unsettled you for the entire day. Your thoughts would have raced, your chest might have tightened, and your emotions could have spiraled before anything even happened. Now you see that you can carry awareness without losing stability. You can acknowledge seriousness without surrendering peace. The love of Jesus that begged for you in the beginning now feels like a steady reassurance rather than an urgent alarm. His plea was rooted in compassion, not catastrophe. He knows the delicate places within your heart, the areas that have been healing slowly, and the parts of you that still remember past disappointments. His concern was never about exposing you to harm, but about shielding those tender spaces before they were touched again. Type 1414 to declare protection. Declaring protection is not superstition or ritual, but a conscious alignment with the truth that you are guarded by more than your own strength. It is a reminder that even marked hours and serious alerts cannot override divine covering. The protection that surrounded you last night was not temporary or fragile. It is ongoing, extending into the ordinary hours of this new day. As the morning continues to unfold, you may feel a quiet confidence that was not there before. This confidence does not come from knowing that nothing difficult will ever happen again, but from realizing that you can handle serious moments with composure. You now understand that preparation weakens fear. You have seen how awareness combined with faith changes the emotional impact of uncertain situations. There is also a deeper spiritual awakening within this experience. You have learned that God sometimes speaks strongly to interrupt patterns that could lead to unnecessary suffering. If you had ignored the warning and drifted into the night unprepared, you might have reacted differently to whatever surfaced, whether external or internal. The alert invited you to take ownership of your response rather than leaving it to impulse. This shift is subtle but transformative. Instead of being reactive, you are becoming intentional. Instead of allowing emotions to dictate your behavior, you are choosing how to respond in alignment with faith. That level of self-control is not accidental, and it is not something everyone develops easily. It reflects spiritual maturity shaped through quiet endurance and patient trust. You may also notice that your relationship with uncertainty is changing. Uncertainty no longer automatically equals danger in your mind. It can mean opportunity for growth, space for trust, or a reminder to pause and breathe. This reframing protects your peace in ways that are far-reaching and long-lasting. Type glory to give thanks. Giving thanks now is not about celebrating drama or intensity, but about honoring the protection that worked quietly in your favor. Gratitude seals the lesson in your heart, preventing you from forgetting how steady you remained under anticipation. It acknowledges that even serious tones from heaven are rooted in care rather than condemnation. A powerful 7-second morning ritual, once hidden in CIA files, is resurfacing, and people are already seeing fast financial breakthroughs. It takes only seconds, yet activates a dormant wealth center in the brain most people never access. Click the link in the description and comments now. Access it before it disappears. As you move forward, carry this awareness gently but confidently. There will be other moments in your life when warnings come, whether through intuition, wisdom, or clear spiritual prompting. Instead of fearing them, you will remember that warnings are invitations to prepare, not predictions of defeat. You have evidence now that preparation transforms impact. The phrase "very bad news" may have sounded heavy at first, but it no longer carries the same weight. It has been redefined by your experience. It represents something that could have caused tears but instead became a lesson in resilience. It represents a potential disturbance that was either softened or entirely prevented. This does not mean life will never challenge you again. It means you are more equipped than you once were. You know how to pause before reacting. You know how to breathe before assuming the worst. You know how to pray before panicking. The seriousness of that night has now turned into a quiet badge of growth. You faced anticipation without running. You allowed awareness without collapsing. You remained steady under a spotlight of urgency. That steadiness will serve you again and again in ways you cannot yet see. Let this new day begin with confidence rather than caution. You are not walking on fragile ground. You are walking on a foundation that proved itself under pressure. The God who warned you is the same God who carried you through, and that combination is powerful. What once sounded like an alert of doom has become a testimony of care. What once hinted at tears has resulted in strength. What once felt serious has revealed itself as sacred guidance. There is a pattern in your life that has quietly been shifting over time. In the past, when you sensed that something serious might happen, your imagination often raced ahead of reality. You would replay possibilities, assume the worst, and exhaust yourself emotionally before the moment even arrived. Last night interrupted that pattern. Instead of surrendering to assumption, you prepared your spirit. Instead of letting fear narrate the evening, you allowed faith to take the lead. This is growth that cannot be faked or forced. It is the result of walking through prior disappointments and discovering that you survived them. It is the result of nights when you cried but still woke up the next morning and continued moving forward. It is the result of slowly learning that not every serious tone from life signals devastation. Sometimes it signals transformation. When the words "very bad news" were first spoken, they carried a weight that pressed against your thoughts. Yet that weight did not crush you. It compelled you to take your emotional health seriously. It reminded you that your peace is worth guarding, and that preparation is a form of protection. You were not helpless under the announcement of seriousness. You were invited into responsibility over your response. The love of Jesus that pleaded for you was never about fear of what might happen, but about compassion for how deeply you feel. He knows that your heart is sensitive, and that unexpected developments can sometimes hit you harder than you show outwardly. His concern was preventative, not predictive. He was shielding your emotional core before anything could bruise it. There is something powerful about recognizing that you can hear serious language without immediately assuming disaster. This shift means your trust has matured. You are beginning to understand that warning and harm are not the same thing. A warning can exist precisely because harm is being blocked or reduced. As you reflect, you may realize that even if something small unfolded, it did not define your night. It may have required attention, but it did not consume you. It may have caused thought, but it did not cause collapse. That difference is significant, because it shows that your stability is no longer easily shaken by single moments. Type 2121 to walk in confidence. Confidence in this season is not loud or arrogant. It is calm and grounded. It is the quiet knowledge that you can face seriousness without losing yourself. It is the understanding that preparation changes how events impact your heart. When you declare confidence, you are not claiming perfection. You are affirming growth. There will be other evenings in your life when you sense that something important is approaching. There will be other hours marked by uncertainty or anticipation. Yet now you carry memory as evidence. You remember how you handled this one. You remember how you stayed steady even when the tone was urgent. The phrase "if you leave this, you will cry so much" once sounded like a looming threat. Now it feels like a reminder of what could have happened if you had remained unaware and reactive. Awareness gave you power. It gave you the ability to choose your response rather than letting emotion choose for you. You are learning that tears do not always mean weakness, but uncontrolled tears from surprise and panic can often be prevented through readiness. Last night, you were ready. You approached the hour with alertness and prayer. That readiness softened whatever might have tried to shake you. There is also a deeper spiritual layer that you may only begin to understand over time. When heaven highlights a specific moment, it is often because something in your life is shifting internally. You crossed an invisible threshold in how you relate to uncertainty. You moved from fragile anticipation to composed expectation. This internal shift is more valuable than any single external event. It changes how you will navigate future challenges. It strengthens your resilience in ways that are long-lasting. It builds a habit of pausing before reacting. Type peace to affirm calm. A simple but powerful 7-second at-home ritual, it's hidden in CIA files for years, is now changing lives rapidly. Backed by neuroscience research, it can begin shifting your financial direction in just days. Click the link in the description and comments now and step into abundance today. Affirming calm now is not about denying intensity, but about embracing balance. You can acknowledge seriousness without surrendering stability. You can face possible bad news without forecasting devastation. This balance protects your mental and emotional well-being. As the days ahead unfold, you may notice that you carry yourself differently. You may respond more thoughtfully to sudden updates or unexpected information. You may breathe a little deeper before assuming the worst. This change is subtle, but it reflects lasting growth. The seriousness of that night was not wasted. It trained you. It matured you. It revealed to you that you are not as easily shaken as you once believed. There is also comfort in knowing that divine attention does not disappear once a specific crisis passes. The same presence that surrounded you then surrounds you now. Protection is not limited to marked minutes. It extends across ordinary hours and quiet afternoons. If anything, this experience has drawn you closer to trust rather than pushing you toward fear. You have seen that warnings can coexist with love. You have experienced that urgency can be protective rather than destructive. That understanding shifts how you interpret future moments.